Hello all heroes and welcome back to Invincible, Guarding the Globe, and today we are going to discuss the options that you have for the new Cecil's Nightmare event going on currently that requires From Worlds Beyond characters. Meaning, there is an extremely limited roster of units that you can actually use. Now, the first thing I am going to say, though, is don't worry yourself about this event. The rewards here, while certainly nice if you can get them, are nothing to go crazy over. I mean, it's gems, it's lab coins, and if you manage to get to the top 100, you can get some characters. A fine and dandy loot, but it will not make or break your game to miss out on the top slots. Because, frankly, most of us, myself included, do not have From World Beyond characters anywhere near built enough to tackle that upper echelon of the event. So what we're going to do here, and I'm going to try and make this a habit for each of the restricted events, is we're going to talk about what your options are, kind of ranked from least effective to what I feel is most effective. Because you're going to want to be very picky choosy, not only with who you're sending into battle, but who you're prioritizing, especially going forward, because we can probably count on there always being, or I say always, of there definitely being an event going on that could have a certain restriction in Cecil's Nightmares. It could be that it's Earth's Defenders next time. It could be criminals. It could even be like a particular tag. Like, it could be that only Viltrumites can go in, or only humans, or only attackers. There's a lot that they could do with it, which admittedly makes it pretty exciting. But that means that there is a lot to cover as far as who can actually work. Now, From Worlds Beyond is quite a new is the wrong word, a young faction, in that we only have 2 elite characters in the form of Alan the Alien and Battle Beast, and then 2 rare characters in the form of Flax and Leader and Damien Darkblood. We technically also have Flax and Soldier, but you can't level him up past like 100. You can't rank him up to anything, so it doesn't count. You have 4. You have 4 usable heroes for the From Worlds Beyond faction. So we're going to talk about them one by one and give a brief little overview of what they can offer to your team. Bringing up the bottom of the barrel, we have the Flaxen Leader. Now, I love memeing with Flaxen Leader, mostly because of this ability where when fighting against humans, he increases the resources you can get. This is extremely effective in GDA ops and can speed up your progression. This doesn't mean crap in Cecil's Nightmares. It doesn't even mean a little bit, because what you get from stars is what you get from stars. That's not going to change, no matter how many humans that this Flaxen Leader beats down. So this, worthless. His Elite Plus ability, nothing. Not even a thing. Now, for his other 2 abilities that actually do something, Crushing Blow, he smashes the ground, dealing some damage. Over time, the attack deals 110% of his base damage per second for 5 seconds. This is okay. The problem is his attack stat is so dang low that even though technically this is like, it's like if this was on an attacker like Invincible, 110% per second for 5 seconds is actually a lot. Let's not discount the percentages. That is actually a lot. But that doesn't mean crap if you don't have the stats to pay the bills. And yeah, he's not paying any bills with his attack stat. It's piddly. It ain't doing nothing. Next, we do have Flax and Armor. When his HP goes below 40%, he recovers 10% of his health and increases his defense by 20% for 5 seconds. I mean, it's a modest healing boost and a modest defense boost. He's bottom of the barrel in terms of your options. There's not a whole lot you're going to get out of this guy. Now, for number 3, I am actually going to do something a little controversial here, and I'm going to rank Battle Beast as number 3, and I have a very specific reason. Battle Beast, he may be a cat, but he dies like a dog. The problem with Battle Beast is that, if you take a peek at, let's see here, which ability is it? If you take, here we are. If you take a peek at his Worthy Opponent ability, if he's fighting an opponent that has 75% or higher of their HP, so over 3/4 of their HP, he gets a massive damage boost, but his defense takes a nosedive. He takes a defensive hit of 15%. Now the idea here is that he gets 5% life leech on his Brothers in Battle skill, and on his main ability, if he consumes wounds, he gets 6% health back for each wound. But it's not enough to keep up. It's just not, because you have to be doing an actual ton of damage for life leech to matter. And this, at most, you might get 12% if you get a couple wounds. Yeah, I mean, well, even like right here, it only stacks up to 3 times, which means at most he's going to get 18% of his max HP, which would be fine if he had a support. That's the thing that's really killing this. From Worlds Beyond does not have a support, period. It is attackers and defenders. I mean, there's just nothing. I don't even know, does... Yeah, even he's an attacker, so they just literally don't have a support, and most importantly for Battle Beast purposes, they don't have a healer. So, even though he does have a little bit of healing built into his kit, it ain't enough, especially if Invincible, heaven forbid, dashes right to him and starts immediately pummeling him. Nah, it ain't gonna be enough. So as far as build priority, if you're not being picky, I'd rank him as number 3 out of the 4 From Worlds Beyond characters. Now, in general, I should rank him as a number 2. We're just like, let's imagine in a world that we had an actual From Worlds Beyond healer. Then he would go up to number 2. Well, actually, he'd probably still be number 3 because that healer would probably be number 2 if we're being totally honest. Point is, he's held back by just a lack of options for his support in the From Worlds Beyond cast. And that's really the only thing holding him back, because he actually does hit like a truck. He just also gets hit like a truck. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. Now, number 2 is an interesting one. Damien Darkblood, I'm actually giving the number 2 spot. For interesting reasons. Funny enough, his abilities are actually okay. And there is a small but adamant section of the community that does preach the gospel of this guy actually being pretty decent. So if we take a look here, first of all, a Dance Macabre here. Macabre? I'm uncultured, I don't know what that means. He bounces from one enemy to another, reducing their defense by 10 seconds, while dealing 200% base damage with each impact. So effectively, he bounces through a few enemies, he hits a few enemies, probably like 2 or 3, does tank their defense a bit, and then actually hits with a pretty healthy 200% base damage, keeping in mind he is actually an attacker, so his attack stats, while certainly not setting records, are going to be actually made for him to do some damage. So 200% base damage is not bad, and reducing their defense does make him a bit of a pseudo-offensive support, where he can make the enemies easier to kill for your other allies. Now, if we take a look here at Dark Alliance, when an enemy dies, he gets some healing. Or, excuse me, when his enemy dies, he actually heals his allies from the world beyond. So this is a... Like I said, he's a pseudo-support. He's primarily an attacker, but this is the closest that From Worlds Beyond has to a healer. The problem is the enemy has to actually dropped first. And 5% is not a whole lot. I mean, it's of his HP, but being that he's an attacker, he's not really made to have a whole lot of HP. So, like, this is not going to be enough to save Battle Beast, but it is something. And then when one of his allies dies, he does increase the crit chance of all of his allies from World Beyond by 10%, so that's something. Now, I think it's this ability that really makes him stand out. Once every 10 seconds, which is a really short cooldown by the way, Darkblood chooses a new target at random and becomes invisible and goes to their position. He silences them for 1.5 seconds and deals 250% base damage. Silencing means they can't use their abilities, which is absolutely huge for characters like Green Ghost and Invincible, who use their abilities to dash around like crazy and be incredibly hard to hit while doing high damage. He shuts that down and then does an actually pretty impressive 250% base damage. That's a decently high multiplier, all things considered. And once every 10 seconds means it is often. Even this only has a cooldown of 13 seconds. This is going to be hitting faster. So if you want to put the time into building Damien Darkblood, he's not as egregious of a build right now because there are so few options with From Worlds Beyond that it's not nearly as punishing to build a rare character, either Flax Leader or Damien Darkblood. Although I suspect that will change in the near future, so don't go too crazy. But if you do have a Damien Darkblood decently built up, it's not actually a bad option, especially with this last ability here. The silencing and the high damage will work wonders. Now, of course, taking the number 1 spot is our boy Alan the Alien. Alan is leaps and bounds ahead of all of his other options. He is a defender. He has some very high abilities here, and the fact that this particular ability does 600% of his defense's area damage, and he gets a taunt, is very helpful. If we take a look at this ability, this is effectively a pseudo death save, where when he gets down to 1 HP, he will heal 10% of his health and get healing over time for the next 5 seconds, keeping him nice and alive. And then evolution here, when he drops below 10%, he just gets a very healthy attack boost and defense boost for the next 5 seconds, meaning that these two pair together very well. This one wouldn't really do so much in the current event because you're not really fighting anybody that's not of this earth, except for maybe Martian Man. But these two put him just leaps and bounds over his competition. He is undisputedly one of the best defenders in the game, if not the best. Pretty much the only character he's really fighting for the top slot is Monster Girl, and their kits are different enough to where you can pretty comfortably call Alan one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the game. Taking the number 1 slot, if you're going to try and do anything in this Nightmare stage, you need to have Alan, period. Everybody else, use as you have them. Like, I've got a Battle Beast that I do have leveled up to an extent, and then I've got some spare Flax and leaders that can just be meat shields, I guess. But at the end of the day, don't worry too much about it. If you're staring down the barrel of this mission, don't level up Damien Darkblood just to do this. The rewards are nice, sure, but they're nothing that's going to change your life. I mean, would I love to have some extra lab coins? Sure. But you can get lab coins from summons, you can get lab coins from doing the GDA ops. We currently have the criminal GDA op right now, where this one right here, you can get around 100 lab coins every single time as long as you're doing halfway decent. It's not actually that big of a deal. It's free loot as far as you can get, and the first few missions are pretty easy, thankfully. The first 5 or so is basically free loot, which is not half bad, actually. So don't go crazy. If you do have an Alan or a Battle Beast or even a Damien Darkblood built up, go nuts. Go for it. Go crazy. Have a good time. If you don't, though, don't sweat it. These loots are nothing crazy. Now, I would love to see some Cecil's Nightmares where the loots are actually important, like, even like characters and stuff. I mean, I think it would be wild if they actually introduce a new character as a reward for one of these Nightmare missions, because, like, you could have, like, an elite character at every 5, maybe even throw in an exceptional or something. Just an idea that I think would really spice things up and make this even more worth doing than it already is, which is already pretty impressive. But that is all we have for today. I do hope that this video did help you out. We will give updates as necessary the next time they have an event with the From World Beyond faction restriction. Hopefully we'll have more by then. I'm hoping for some Viltrumites or something, because we need a lot more muscle in that particular faction. And this is something I'm going to try and regularly do each time there is a restriction, just to kind of go over the options that you have. But let me know down in the comments below how the Cecil's Nightmares have been going for you, and we shall see you next time. Have a good one.